Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are in the world. My name is Jessica and I bought a few books. So as you probably guessed, this is going to be a book haul. Yeah, I bought a few. It's not a huge book haul, but there's still a lot of books to read. Okay, let's get started. We're going to start. I kind of did things semi-organized and I've got them into like genres. So let's start with we've got horror fantasy here, and I'm just going to hold this as a whole thing, hopefully. And that is the Sookie Stackhouse series. For those of you who don't know, the Sookie Stackhouse series is essentially True Blood. If you watch that on TV, I think there is 13 books, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's 12 of the books, and I think there's about 15 in total, so I don't have all of them. I have read the first one, and I'm going to be completely honest and say the book has been nowhere near as good as the series, but I'm hopefully as it goes along, it'll start getting better. And next in the series category is the rest of the City of Bones series, and this is a kind of like a supernatural, like fantasy type thing where you've got like Jason Clary and they hunt down downworlders, but then you've got Clary's best friend who is now a vampire, and things start getting really complicated, and then gets even more complicated when Clary's father shows up after how many years and starts creating havoc. So the first 2 books in the series were kind of average for me, but I really wanted to finish out the series, especially seeing as I've got the Bane Chronicles, and it's Bane and Alec, I believe, is the partner's name. It's Alec and Bane that kind of make the series for me. Next up, we have The Island of Missing Trees. The Island of Missing Trees by Elif Shafak. This follows these teenagers who fall in love in Cyprus, and they can only meet under a tree in secret, and then war breaks out, and then eventually, a few decades later, a 16-year-old has never kind of been to that island where her parents kind of met and fell in love and stuff like that. And so, yeah, she goes back. But this is really interesting being from the perspective of a tree. Like, it's narrated from the fig tree. If I recall correctly, I heard about this through Alex from Alex Blackrees, and yeah, she was reading this in one of her sprints, and I just really fell for the concept. It looked really interesting and unique, so I think it should be a good book. Next we have, you guys have all seen this, but it's it's Fairy Tale by Stephen King, and obviously I started reading this through my Stephen King read along. I haven't finished it yet. I'm over halfway through though. So yeah, that was a semi-recent haul. Great book so far, and this follows Charlie, who ends up looking after an old dog called Radar, and turns out to be a world underneath their world, and it's like very heavily inspired by all of these different fairy tales, and it's really fun. And basically, Charlie is trying to save Radar because she's old and dying and that kind of thing. So yeah. Next, we have The Time Traveler's Wife, and I absolutely loved the movie and the TV series. It is really sweet and really romantic, but at the same time, it's also really sad. This follows a time traveler, and he is a man who's able to travel back and forward through time, and it follows him falling in love with Claire, who is his wife. But when he first meets Claire, she's like 6 years old or something like that, and he's like 36. But because he's able to go back and forward in time, the age thing becomes not quite so bad. It says on the back here that so they meet when Claire is 6 and Henry is 36, and they marry when Claire is 22 and Henry is 30. So the whole time traveler thing, like, it's almost like different timelines that he's able to go into. And they fight like cats and dogs, but they still love each other like anything. And it's just so sweet. And yeah, I love the movie, and I love the TV series. And the fact that we were able to pick this up in an op shop really made my day. The next one that I got, another op shop pick, was The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. This one is a very intimidating read for me. I did not really like The Night Circus. Well, there are bits of The Night Circus that I like. I have a review of The Night Circus there if you want to take a look at it. I'm expecting this to be very whimsical, and very descriptive. But if it's like The Night Circus, the characters are kind of like in the back. The plot is going to be quite confusing, I think. I'm excited to read this, but I'm also very intimidated to read this. I don't know. Have you read The Starless Sea? And if you have, tell me what you think of it. I believe this is a love it or hate it book, so I would be very interested to know. Next recent haul is Legends and Lattes, and this is about Vivian, who is an orc, and she was a barbarian and like sword and hammers and killing things, and now she doesn't want to do it. She has opened up a coffee shop. The problem is that nobody in this town has ever heard of coffee. I believe it was a gnomish or an elvish. It was an elvish or a gnomish thing. So nobody in this town has actually ever heard of it. So she's opening up this shop, and she's got a little assistant there. And they're just going about day by day and creating these coffees and like making new breads and sweets, and it's very wholesome, very low stakes. The biggest stakes that have happened is these neighborhood ruffians kind of little gang thing that is saying that if you're in the neighborhood you have to pay a tax. And Vivian's like, nah. So yeah, I'm about a third, maybe nearly half of the way through. Yeah, very low stakes, very chilled out. I'm up to chapter 14. So that is for my TBR actually this month. Another one that is on my TBR this month is Masters of Death, and that is again a very new haul. And I'm super excited about this one. This is like got everything in it. It's got a vampire, it's got the godson of death, it's got a poltergeist, a demonic personal trainer, a sharp-voiced angel, and a love-stricken reaper. Oh, and it's got death as the narrator. It starts off with an absolute bang. I'm not far into it. I'm on to like chapter 2. Yeah, I'm on to chapter 2. But it started off with an absolute bang. It was so fun and quite funny and very different. And so I'm so looking forward to getting into the rest of this. This is actually a 5-star prediction for me. So kind of keeping on the fantasy train, his Dark Materials by Philip Pullman was a recent haul. I was actually lucky enough to pick up quite a few books that somebody was just giving away. So thank you very much for that. And I believe this is based on like the Golden Compass or something like that. I have not read any of Philip Pullman's work, and the back doesn't really say much as well. So I'm kind of going into this one a bit blind. Now, this one, I cannot explain to you how happy I am to have got my hands on this. This is Every Heart a Doorway by Shauna Maguire, the first book in the Wayward Children series, and a really, really, really expensive book to buy brand new for something that's, 170 pages. This is rare as anything to actually get your hands on, and any of the times that I've seen it come up on Facebook or Trade Me or anything like that, it's gone really quick. So I actually managed to get my hands on this at a reasonable price, and I'm so excited. And this is essentially about people or children that go missing, and they find this way to this, I think it's a home for wayward children or something like that. And there's several books in the series which follow different characters from this home. But apart from that, I don't know anything about this. I want to go in completely blind. This again is a 5-star prediction. But I would prefer to go in as blind as possible, so I can't really give you much of an indication about what this is about, but I'm pretty sure everybody has heard of this series. Starting off with Mr. Pip, and Mr. Pip, I don't know whether this is like historical or classic or what. I would say this is like a modern classic, and this basically follows a teacher in the Pacific Islands. He essentially tells stories to these kids, and I believe there's one kid in particular that like is really captivated by his stories, and they form a friendship, and kind of like she really gets into literature and books and stuff like that through this teacher. But then considering it's war torn, things happen, and some pretty gruesome things do happen. I saw the movie, it had Hugh Laurie in it, and it was one of the only movies that ever made me go, ugh, and ever actually shocked me. So, yeah, I'm quite interested to read this. I'm going to be reading this next month in June for the Amazing Readathon for my Kiwi Book of the Month. So keep your eye out for that. Because Lloyd Jones is a Kiwi author. So next we've got like quite a few World War II books, starting with the Alice Network, and I don't know a whole lot about this. Kate Quinn I've heard some quite good things about this author, but the Alice Network, basically, a year into the Great War, Eve Gardner burns to join the fight against the Germans and unexpectedly gets her chance when she's recruited to work as a spy. Sent into enemy-occupied France, she's trained by the mesmerizing Lily, codenamed Alice, the Queen of Spies, who manages a vast network of secret agents right under the enemy's nose. So that's in 1915, and then there's a timeline that follows in the aftermath of World War II. So it's relatively long, but I'm hoping it'll be easy enough to read, because I will try and read this again next month. So the next one is the Wartime Book Club, and a few of these actually came from my grandma. She and I went to our local bookstore, and she bought a few books, and I bought a book. And she's a lot faster at reading than I am, so she's read like all of her books, and she's passed them along to me to read. But this is the Wartime Book Club, and this is set in World War II. And back in those days, reading books was not the thing to do, essentially. And this follows the only librarian of a little island, where she's ordered to destroy books that threaten the new regime. But I think she starts stowing these books away. Then I think she forms a book club with one of her friends, and it starts kind of getting bigger, but they're still keeping it secret from the Germans. And I find this really interesting. I think the idea of not being able to read books is very offensive. But that's how it was back in those days. There were so many books that were burnt next to kind of like historical fantasy type things, starting off with A Dowry of Blood. Cannot wait to read this. However, I need to read Dracula first, and Dracula is on my TBR for this month. I don't know if I'll be able to get all of it read this month, but I do need to read that, I think, before reading this one, Dowry of Blood, because this follows Dracula's first bride, Constantina, I believe is her name. And like the stuff that they get up to, I'm quite blind with this one. This, I believe, is like told in either letter or diary format, and that's so fun. Some of the best books I enjoy because there's something different. So I'm very much looking forward to this. I know this has been a bit of a hit and miss with a few people. Finally the sun has come out. And this isn't even 300 pages. So yeah, I'm quite interested to read this. Next one is Stalking Jack the Ripper. And this is essentially about a girl who falls in love with Jack the Ripper. There is not a whole lot on the back to tell me what this is about at all. There isn't really a synopsis. I just know that it's like a historical fiction. I just saw pictures. Oh, I did. I saw pictures. Ooh. You guys know I love pictures. Ooh. Okay, this is fun. I'm wondering whether she is like an autopsy person or something like that, or like she's learning how to be an autopsy person. That makes sense. And then obviously she runs into Jack the Ripper. But this is a series. After this is, I think, Hunting Dracula, and then Escaping Houdini, and then Capturing the Devil, or something like that. So there's quite a few books in here, and I want to read all of them. Super excited. I'm not much of a YA person, but this is so interesting. Like, of all, okay, this is going to sound really weird, but of all the serial killers, like the kind of the history and the legends of serial killers, Jack the Ripper is probably one of the more famous ones, and the one that I'm actually interested in. Yeah, Stalking Jack the Ripper is definitely one that I am going to pick up next month. Next, we've got some classics. Starting off with two very beautiful editions of Pride and Prejudice. This one came from my grandma, who was reading it last time she came down, and she finished it and said that I could keep it and read it. It is gorgeous. And again, I believe there's pictures. There are pictures. We love pictures. The latest copyright on here is 1986. So it's relatively old. It's definitely got that old book smell, and it's so lovely. And then I found this one in an op shop before I got the one for my grandma. I don't know a whole lot about this. I know it's like a romance, and I know there's a Mr. Darcy that absolutely everyone just falls in love with. And people's expectations of men are like highly warped after reading this. The next two classics I've got are Dracula, and I feel like I don't need to explain this one. Everybody knows Dracula. Dracula is a vampire who lives in Transylvania. There's a Jonathan Harker that kind of goes to his home, and Jonathan's like a lawyer. And at some point, Jonathan escapes and goes back to Mina Harker. And then I think Dracula gets on a boat and comes to England, and then he falls for Mina, thinking that she's like his reincarnated love of his life or something like that. But we all know who Dracula is. Of course, there's Van Helsing as well. The next one that I picked up, this kind of came as like a two for however much. I think it was like two for $18 deal. Was The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And I am interested to read this. This is like a romance between, I guess, an orphan, Quasimodo, who gets brought up by the local priest, who's actually a bit of a dick. And then there's the street dancer Esmeralda, I believe. And they kind of start forming a relationship, but then the priest, Frollo, what a name, Frollo. The priest is like in love with Esmeralda, and so he starts trying to sabotage that and starts really being a dick. So yeah, I'm quite interested to read this. Again, it's not on the top of my priority list, but I will read it at some point. It is Where the Crawdads Sing. And this was one of those books that I got for free. There were like five in the lot. So I don't know a whole lot about this. Based in the very late 1960s, I would say goes into the 1970s. This could be like a romance, like a contemporary romance or a historical romance, I think. I'm not really sure. There could be a love triangle there because it says two young men from town become intrigued by this girl's beauty. There's also some kind of like murder mystery there as well. And so basically, the locals are suspecting this main character, Kaya, of murdering someone when a body is found. So I would say that's not the case. Yeah, I'm not really sure about too much. I know this is a very well loved book though. So I think I'm going to go into this relatively blind. The next we've got that's really popular is Daisy Jones and the Six. I have not read any Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I probably should. She is one of those contemporary writers that people absolutely love and they talk about a lot. And this, I think, follows a band, and I feel like follows Stacey Jones in particular. And I think it's just like telling the story of this band and how they make it real big and then they fall apart. So yeah, could be quite interesting. Again, everybody loves this book. Everybody raves about this book, and it's not been on my radar, but again, it was one of the ones that came free in the pile. So I was like, I should read it. The next one, and I've actually read this, is Yellowface. Go and check out my Tale from Two Trails vlog for my thoughts on this. This follows June, who is an author who witnesses the death of a fellow friend named Athena. And Athena is like a fantastic author and like has some great writing, and she has a manuscript that's just sitting waiting there, and so June takes that manuscript and essentially sells that as her own, and then there are obviously some consequences that come along with that, and there's some very interesting looks into the publishing industry and also into social media and how social media starts affecting people. And so, yeah, this got 4 stars from me. The next one that people either love or hate is Normal People by Sally Rooney. Interested to read this more because of the divide. I don't actually know a whole lot about that. This is, I guess, like a slice of life. I could be totally wrong about that, but definitely one that I want to read next month again. So this next one is called Bewildered by Richard Powers, and this follows a scientist who is also a widowed father to a 9-year-old, and he's essentially trying to search for life on other planets. And then one day his son gets into a massive fight and is very violent, and it's proposed that his son is put on these drugs to help calm the boy down. This is interesting. It says, what can he say when his boy comes to him wanting an explanation for a world that is clearly in love with its own destruction? The only thing for it is to take the boy to other planets, or while fostering his son's desperate attempt to save this one. So I think he's just trying to raise his son, and I think it'll be a really interesting look into single parenthood, single fatherhood. This is really weird. It doesn't actually have chapter titles. However, the author of this book has been a Pulitzer Prize winner before. So, yeah, I picked this up. I picked this up at an op shop, and I thought it looked really interesting, and I thought there were so many different questions that could be asked and thought about by reading this book. I think this is going to be a ponderer. So my next recent haul is the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society by Mary Ann Schoffer. And this is essentially about a little bit kind of along the same veins as the Wartime Book Club, where the small island off the mainland of England is occupied by Germans, and this group of people just inadvertently start this book club in order to kind of save themselves from execution. One night they lie and say they were discussing these books, and then it just kind of snowballs and gets bigger and bigger from there. But just after the war, follows our main character, I think Juliet. Yes, Juliet, who is an author and journalist, investigator kind of thing, and she gets wind of the Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society, and so she kind of goes over there, I believe, and starts interviewing them. And this whole thing is told in letters, which is really, really, really interesting. It's interesting to read. I was supposed to read this month for my Whodunit read along, and I started it, and I wasn't feeling it, and I thought actually it would be probably better to read and easier to read next month for the Amazing Readathon. The next one, again, is like a World War II thing, I believe, and that is The Nightingale by Christina Hanna. And again, how gorgeous is this? It's absolutely gorgeous. And this follows two sisters who are separated in the war. And I believe it follows each of them and their circumstances and what happens to them. A heartbreakingly beautiful novel that celebrates the resilience of the human spirit and the durability of women. So, yeah, very interesting. I'll start off with Anna O. And this is a really interesting concept. This is by Matthew Blake. It's such a beautiful minimalist cover. And essentially, this is a story about a girl who has been like in a coma or something for several years, and this doctor is trying to figure out how to wake her up, and he kind of delves into her dreams and stuff like that, and tries to find the truth of what happened to this group of people that was, or a double murder, sorry, that was murdered. And apparently Anna was found next to their bodies. So he's trying to like use her dreams to find the truth and also treat her and wake her up. And this just sounded so interesting. The next one is Artemis by Andy Weir. I think everybody knows who Andy Weir is at this point. I have read The Martian and I really enjoyed it. I don't know a whole lot about this. I think that's like whether there's a heist or something that's happening, but it follows this criminal who lives on the moon. There's like a settlement on the moon, and there's some kind of like heist or something where she's promised to get really rich, And so it follows her and her adventures through that, and I think things go horribly wrong. And the last line on the blurb is, at first it was about the money, then it was about control, now it's about survival. So yeah, I really, and like I said, I really enjoyed The Martian. I think I gave The Martian 4 stars. And at some point, I really want to get my hands on Project Hail Mary, because I have heard that that is essentially Andy Weir's magnum opus. It's like his threshold is Project Hail Mary. So after this one, I will try and get my hands on that. The next one, this was also a part of that free package. It's Night House by Leigh Bardugo. And let me tell you my thoughts on Leigh Bardugo's writing. So far, I hate it. So why do I have this? I want to give Leigh Bardugo a second chance. I'm hoping this being an adult instead of a young adult, I will like it more. I'm hoping there will be more depth in the story. I believe this is like a duology. It looks like it's going to be like a murder mystery, dark academia, that kind of thing, which I quite like, those kind of tropes. So I'm really hoping that I can give Leigh Bardugo a second chance and enjoy this book. The last two that I've got for you, The Institute. You guys saw me read this for the Stephen King read along. Watch my live wrap up if you haven't already for my thoughts on this, but I gave it 4.5 stars. There are some spoilers in that. So if you don't want to be spoiled, this is essentially about a young boy named Luke, who has this ability of a telekinetic kid, where like he could sometimes move things like from his mind without knowing that he could do that. And so he gets picked up by this organization, very, very secret, very classified. And essentially these kids, there's all of these kids that are either telekinetic or telepathic, and they are working towards a bigger world goal. Like the organization is working towards a really big world goal, but they're also really abusive to these kids. And Luke manages to find a way out of the institute and escapes and catches up with this cop in this really small town. And so, yeah, they end up being able to bring down at least that institute. Very, very, very good book. I gave this 4.5 stars. Really, really good. The final book that I am going to show you is the Bachman books. This is very old. This is 86. As like the 4 stories kind of pulled together into one volume. They're not long stories. They are kind of somewhere between 130, 150 pages each, maybe a little bit longer. But why I bought this is the story Rage was pulled by Stephen King. He acknowledges that it's obviously not his fault, and he didn't like cause these kids to lose the plot or anything like that. But he decided to stop the publication of Rage. So you can buy the Bachman books now, but it doesn't have Rage. It doesn't have Rage in it. It only has The Long Walk, Roadwork, and The Running Man. To find this with Rage, like, this is actually a very, very, very valuable book indeed. They're currently going, like, I've seen some on Amazon go for like $500 US. I managed to get mine for less than that, which I'm happy about. But I will read these at some point, maybe not altogether. But I will read them, and then they will go in my closet and not see the light of day. This is going to be one of my, like, forever collectible books that does not see the light of day, and I can hopefully keep this very well preserved. So those were all the books that I got. I probably got more, to be honest, between January and now. I honestly don't know, but these are the ones that I can think of. And how many books is that? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. That is more books than I thought. Can we just ignore that? That's 44 books. 44 books in that haul from, I guess, for 6 months. That's not too bad. But yeah, what did you think? Are there any books in there that you have read that you loved or that you hated? Definitely let me know if you've read The Starless Sea. Let me know what you think of it. I would love to know if you've read Every Heart is a Doorway. Let me know. If you've read any of the other books, let me know what you think as well. I would be very interested to hear. Are there any books in here that you would like to see me prioritize as well? Is there any that you would like to see me do in a vlog? Let me know. And I think that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, bye.